Morning, Tank.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
You? I'm good.
Oh, good.
Good.
It looks like a different fuzzy background.
That's because I'm outside.
Ah. Oh, it works outside. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it works anywhere.
Yeah, technology is amazing. Okay, that makes more sense. All right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. The other technology that's really incredible in Zoom is the sound dampening. It's amazing how much background noise you never hear.
Yeah, I've heard they were doing all this, like when the whole pandemic, like the race to get the technology good, and then everybody just jumped into it, and I stopped paying attention to how good it got. I just started using it.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people say, "Oh, sorry about the noise. Oh, sorry about my kid. Oh, sorry about the dog." And they're like, "Can't hear anything. Don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's new. What's going on? What's happening?
A little bit of everything, a lot of nothing, same old, same old.
My dad used to say, "Same shit, new day."
Yeah, pretty much. Although my son, a few days ago, told me, looks like I've got to go to homecoming. I'm like, okay, go to homecoming. I'm like, well, when is it? It's like this weekend. I'm like, way to plan. Like, hey, Mark.
Good. Obviously was trying to get out of it for a long time.
Well, new girlfriend, new experience, didn't plan on it, a different school, like just all these like details, and all of a sudden now I have to do all these things for him on his time frame, and I'm like, remember we've talked about planning and forethinking a little bit? No, you didn't think about that? All right, we'll have that conversation later again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a conversation. Yeah. That's an ongoing.
Ongoing, yes, for sure. How's Mark today?
How's Mark today?
I'm okay. I'm a little tired. I didn't sleep very well last night for some reason. Don't know why. Might have been because of the bears in my dreams. Is anybody?
Bears.
Yeah. Can you analyze that? What does it mean?
No,
if the
but you
bears?
can.
How many bears were there?
Just one.
Okay.
Was it
and
menacing you, or was it just?
It was destroying the property, the home, I guess it was. Yeah, dreams are, and it was definitely scary. So you're suggesting only I can analyze that?
Jungian dream analysis suggests that it's you talking to yourself. So right. Nobody else's symbols will necessarily mean anything to you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming it's something is attacking me. I feel like I'm being attacked. I don't know. Yeah.
So that would be you're the house and the bear is attacking you, or the house is something in your life and the bear is tearing it apart.
Yeah. Right. Or yeah. Right. There you go. Yeah. So you can do this.
I know.
I've got books on it behind me. It sounds like there's a change that you're resisting, but that's just my archetype from my Jungian studies. But
a change that I'm resisting. I like it. Okay. Yeah, there's some definite change going on for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Anything unwelcome?
No. I think it's just business growth and the usual stuff associated with business at this point. Just which is forcing change.
The forced part of that made you chuckle, huh?
Yeah, that's the funny part. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it's anytime you start a new business, right? There's going to be some bumps in the road.
Yeah. Obviously, that's always how that goes. There's always some resistance too, right? Like there's like,
yeah,
I think I might want that back there, and yeah.
I want to. I don't know. Did I go the right path? Do I want to maybe try this other thing or go backwards? And actually resistance to success.
Yeah, because that comes with a lot of changes.
Yeah, and it's like, ooh, I don't know. I was comfortable in the old life, type of things. So yeah.
Yeah, the devil,
All right. Enough about my dreams.
I think you're talking about all of us in life in general, so it seemed to play. But
yeah, right. How about you guys? How are you?
Good. I've got to play with my grandson a couple of times in the last week, and I saw my new bump.
Right.
My youngest has a food baby now that apparently is a boy.
Oh, we know it's a boy? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Apparently she's 7 months pregnant. She's due in December, but she looks like she's eaten too much cheese.
Just a little wee bump, eh?
Wow.
Yeah, it's tiny, but she's got pretty wide hips, and it seems like he's transverse, so all the length is being taken up sort of side by side inside the pelvic region. So one of these
Okay.
days she's just going to go boom.
Like the Alien movie, right? It's just gonna
Oh God.
face
Fall
in
out
the skin.
frontwards. Yeah.
There's a funny story there. My wife was had to be like 10 months pregnant at this point, and I brought her to see that movie Prometheus, the
Which one?
Alien movie, the prequel to the Alien movie.
Oh,
Prometheus.
okay, yeah.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
The one that had the medical device that you lie down in, and
Yeah.
it was automatically drilling into the woman's body. My wife was like, "Oh God."
Yeah, that'll trigger some stuff, right?
No birth trauma, just movie trauma.
Not at all. Not at all. I wouldn't recommend this to your daughter.
No, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all. That's terrible.
Too funny. So, do we have a topic in mind today for kids?
Well, we could talk about planning.
Preparation and planning. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, maybe you could tell Mark what it was that you had earlier.
Yeah, so my son, he's got a relatively new girlfriend who goes to a different school, and there's lots of jokes about that. Anyway, so we're just apparently last minute, a couple of days ago, Dad, I need to go to homecoming, apparently. I'm like, all right, go to homecoming. Like, what part of this has to do with me? And well, I need this, and we need to go shopping, and because he doesn't have a lot of dress clothes because he's been growing like a weed for the last 3 years. Like, I'm not buying anything that can't be replaced cheaply. And so it's now he needs all these monies. And then even just this morning, there was I just jumped in the shower and I get out to 13 texts of, Dad, I need money for tickets. I only take cash. I don't have cash on me. I can pay just this. I'm like, dude, your lack of preparedness is something I thought we had several conversations about in every aspect of life over the last 2 to 3 weeks. None of that landing. So yeah, preparedness, planning, and as she said, the ongoing conversation that apparently is.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? Did you roll with it, or was that all on the inside?
It's funny because I know it's coming, right? I know where he's at most of the time. Him and I have a pretty good relationship. So I'm in my towel and I grabbed the $60 off cash that I have, and I know it's $60 because he'd already told me, but he's not giving me details. And that's the challenge I have with him is the details. I need to go to prom. Well, when is it? I don't know. Well, then how are we going to prepare? So he had mentioned it before. So I have $60 cash in my hand, and I'm making him go through the hoops of, well, how much do you need? When do you need it by? That? And he goes, I need $60 and I need it today. I'm like, here. And he has that shocked look on his face, oh, thank you for knowing. There's something about I plan your life. I do the part you should be doing. We're supposed to do a handoff here at some point. There should be a baton passing, and I'm missing where that happens.
He's
How old is
17.
he?
17.
Yeah.
17.
17. Yeah. I don't think it happens at 17.
No. I don't think he knows he's in the race yet.
No. So a couple of sort of lifestyle choices.
Sure.
One of them being get a note taker of some kind on your phone, child, so you can make a note. It's this much. It's this day. I need this for it. And then when I ask you questions, you will have answers.
Well, the thing on that is
Yeah.
he's too smart for his own good. We've talked about this a little bit before. He's not a dumb kid. So he's got this really good capacity that he thinks he doesn't need to use. It's that 17-year-old ego that goes, I got this. I'll remember. I can handle this. I'm a great driver. I'm good at that. No, buddy. No, that's just your ego talking. If you were good at this, you would have done these things. But that's the lesson I can't seem to get through to him. So yeah, I'm if you want to, we have these times where we have to talk about whether it's grades or this or that or the other. And he says, well, let's just do it today at 3. I'm like, I have a calendar. I have a life. I'm working, right? I'm doing stuff. So I get to the point, I'm send me a calendar invite. Let's get you using some tools. He's just so resistant because the 17-year-old mind in high school is, I want to go do this with my friends. I want to do that. I'm got to get to there's no.
The less planning, the better, right?
Yeah,
they
right.
Want, they want freedom. Yeah.
Right. And that's,
think
I
it's
don't
not
want to
just
squelch
that.
that really.
I think it's not just that. The spontaneity is all the spontaneity, but the spontaneity is also a resistance and a reaction to how much of his day he has no control over at all.
Yeah.
He goes to B block
Yes.
because it's B block time. He doesn't have any, and he doesn't have to track any of that stuff because it's really none of his business. He just, I do it now. Okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to pay attention to it. So that's
Right.
a thing that he has no skills in doing because he
Right.
has not been the person doing it.
I tried, but yeah, you're right. Like they get the whole, like the school, I'll call it a mask, goes over every kid and like, okay, this is the thing that we have to do. And then they find their ways to tweak it. Like he shows up late and he's got to deal with his friend to kick open the side door so he doesn't get caught at a certain time after the teacher makes rounds. It's like, I'm talking to a kid who's in prison and he's getting extra bread from the mess hall. Like
Yeah.
they work
the system. Yeah.
they're so good at it, but they don't recognize that it's a system that if they just played along.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
no,
no.
they'll never understand
Oh, no.
that. That's
No, no.
there's no part of that that's acceptable. That's
I
like
like how
saying that,
both of you just shook your head at the same time.
No,
no. That's like saying all you have to do in North Korea is just get along with the system. Like that's not
Yeah,
how
right.
it works. Like that's not how people are.
Wow. I love that extreme, but that's hilarious. But yes, you're right.
It's always the extreme because it's the most easily visible when it's the extreme, right?
Mhm.
You take it to that far end and,
Right.
and then people go, oh, hang on, yeah, I guess. What they're doing, and unfortunately it means it's actually impairing their ability to use those tools, is they're doing it on the sly. So it's kind of, and it can get really bad for, especially for kids with really good grades. It can almost turn into a separate personality. There's like the good grade kid, and then there's that other kid that does things in the classroom and around the classroom, around the homework that is not okay. And they almost split into two different people so that sideline stuff doesn't really develop into skills when it's some of the best skills that they will develop in life. But if they can't incorporate it into who they think they are supposed to be, it makes it very difficult to use those tools. Because obviously he's very good at negotiating and getting help from people and understanding the parameters of the rules.
I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. When he was, I think he was in 6th grade, he was in band. And so he picked up the trumpet, no lessons, just decided he wanted to play trumpet. Okay. So because of that, it was an early program. The schools, they had to cart him to the different high school, whatever. So there's kind of a mess. And we were kind of having this struggle because of the new system, the new North Korea mask that got dropped on him that he had to play in. And he wasn't going to bed early enough. He wasn't getting enough rest. And so I'm like, all right, well, and it was like this Monday, Wednesday, this split schedule. For a 6th grader, it was insane what the school system did. So, but I was trying to work with him. And I'm like, look, you got to go to bed earlier. And so we got to get our homework done. Like we did the whole backtrack thing. And it didn't work for him. He's like, but that's only some days of the week. So he came to me. I'm sitting in the living room, just minding my business or something. And he comes up to me and we were talking about it. He's like, I don't want to do this. I want to do it. I'm like, well, we've got to do something. Here's what I want you to do. And so I sent him away. He comes back with a piece of paper and slams it on the table at the coffee table and slides it across to me. And he goes, here, this is a contract, sign it. I was like, well, can I read it first? He's like, yeah. And I pick it up.
What
and
did
it's
I
a
buy?
contract. Yeah, I'm like, what am I buying here? It was a contract for bedtimes. And he had it broken out. Like on the days that I have band, I will go to bed at this time. And the days that I don't, and I'm like, all right. He goes, it's negotiable. I'm like, all right, let's negotiate. So we spent a half an hour and we signed a contract that was on the fridge for the next year. And I was like,
That's hilarious.
you know, as a former sales trainer, I was in sales training at the time. I'm like, well, shit, what did I make? Like, what, this is me all over. Like, right, I get it. But yeah, he's got that ability to see what he sees. And I think every kid, and then what's the outside parameters, but they don't know where that this is acceptable, this is trouble. And then that's being a kid, right? Is growing up and finding that avenue and avoiding the gutters, but landing in it sometimes because you get another ball when you're bowling the game of life.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, to your point about having those two different mindsets. Like when I sit and talk with them, and I know this is like all of my kids. There's one when they talk to me, and then there's one when they're out in public. And when I'm out in public with them, I'm like, who the fuck? I'm like, what? Who is this kid?
Tank, you're not alone, my friend.
Yeah.
It's all kids. It's I don't know, like a split personality. situation
Yeah.
or a developmental norm, I guess.
Well, it's the same as, almost everybody who has had one of those bosses that's really difficult to work with is
Yeah.
different in that scenario than they are at the pub afterwards with their friends. Like, we have adaptive personalities, and we are genuinely different people in different situations, and for good reason.
Survival. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you maximize your ability to express yourself in this situation while still not having your arms torn off or whatever?
Yeah, and for the 16-year-old boys and 17-year-old boys, like that's a real threat because they like their mouth to go without engaging their brain first.
Well, they haven't worked out yet that there's, because really they've only had that perspective for about 8 minutes. The idea that it might read differently out in the world than it does inside. So they say things out loud. I used to know a kid who would repeat, I don't know if you know what Red Dwarf is. It's a completely cheeky and bizarre British sci-fi comedy.
Okay.
And it had some of the most ridiculous insults in the history of the universe in it, which are funny on TV. They're not funny in real life.
Right.
In real life, they're really offensive. So he would just repeat them because they were funny, right? I'm like, yeah, don't do that anymore. Don't, no. I get that they're funny.
They're testing the waters, right? They're repeating something and looking around. Is anybody laughing? Type
Yeah.
of thing, right?
Yeah, did that
And if
work?
it does, then it hits that dopamine and all those other
That's
things
right.
that go, oh, do that again because that felt
They're gonna
good.
do that.
Yeah, and then they do it
Absolutely.
at somebody's funeral or something like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to. I can't imagine that, but
a friend of mine's son was told, take this to your mom. She's at choir practice at church. And of course it was urgent. So he roller skated up the aisle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Just one of those moments. So I got it was urgent. So here I am in a hurry.
and
And it's pure. I was just gonna say when you catch them saying something like that, and you look at them like, what are you doing? Like, why would you say that? Right? They're truly shocked. They're truly, oh, we don't say that. It's like, no, we don't say that. Oh, okay, no problem. It's an actual shock that they realize, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because what I've experienced, especially for myself going through my 3 kids and when the people I help, like that point right you just made, Mark, is really, really important because they're living their life through the lens that they've been given. And when we look at them like, what the heck are you doing? We have to realize that we gave them that lens.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, their friends, as they get older, obviously their friends have lenses too, but like it's really interesting that I'm looking at my kids and I'm like, okay, I'm doing a lot of self-work when I see my son say something ridiculous. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in my bedroom and figure this one out for myself before I just beat his butt because I know that came from me somewhere.
Yeah.
But that lack of awareness in a lot of parents, they just think, like with my oldest daughter, she's got the 2 little ones. I got a text the other day, my granddaughter inhaled eggs. I'm like, is she choking or is this something funny? Like, I don't, where are you going? Like she stuck scrambled egg up her nose. And my daughter proceeded to tell me the story, but she started with, she inhaled an egg. And I'm like, you got to give me more. Like, do I need to call 911? Why are you bothering talking to me? Like what?
Right.
Grandpa scare went into mode, but like, it just was a funny story. But like, how am I supposed to react to something that she thinks is normal? Because that's how I brought her into this world, right? Like that. So I have to sit back and go, okay, don't get mad, don't get angry, don't get frustrated. Take that on myself and then go talk to them through the filter you have implanted in their vision path.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tank. We talked about this a little bit last time too, I think, about our kids are actually little versions of us.
Well, our words become their inner voice.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes what we say is, we need a continuity editor because we're inclined to say things that are in direct competition or in direct contradiction to each other. I remember my parents and adults around me would say everything from smarten up to don't be so smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Sure, I can do that. Which one do you want me to be this time? I don't understand.
No, it's true. If you really think back as a kid, hi, love. Sorry.
Speaking.
Speaking of kids,
Yeah.
can I help you spell Kevin in a little bit? I'm just on a call. Okay, honey. It's your best friend. Okay. Why don't I'm going to do this really quick for him. I'll spell Kevin for him. That's
Love it.
It's very important to spell Kevin properly.
There you go.
You gotta get it right.
It's his
Yeah.
very best friend in the world. There we go.
Kevin's supposed to have I in his
That's right. He does.
Parenting in action. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Could you please go back to your room without screaming it? The fastest way to do that was to spell Kevin.
Yes, yeah, it often is. And a lot of parents get really tangled up in that. I'm doing something very important right now, and whatever you have is not important to me. So
Yeah.
then you have the dueling importances.
Oh,
And
oh, that's a huge topic right there, Linda. That is me in my first life. That is the biggest change I would describe about parenting 101 and parenting 2.1 type thing. It's my activities and my thoughts aren't the only thing that exist in this house.
What?
The
What?
kids.
You're not the one and only?
Right. Right. It's at the beginning, kids, it was more of a hangover effect from how I was raised, I guess. Yeah, not blaming anybody, just seen but not heard type of thing,
Yeah.
attitude.
yeah, dad's
And,
paper is more important than everybody else, no matter what else
yeah.
is going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And in this house right now, clearly I am not ranked close to number one at all.
no, no,
I'm well down the ladder,
yeah,
which is fair, right? We're all kind of on an equal standing here. So
Yeah.
So I love that he can feel free to interrupt me and know that there's not going to be gigantic explosive consequences of any sort.
yeah,
Sweet little monkey, yeah? Yeah, you didn't get to see him.
Yeah,
I showed
they're
you through the camera.
yeah, they're adorable.
So he told me, so how do you react to this? I think I want to marry a boy, he says. And I was like, well, you're 6. So give it some time. You never know. But he pressed the issue, and his brother was like, you don't marry a boy. And I'm like, Thomas, James can marry whoever he wants, type thing. And I said, what makes you want to marry a boy? He goes, well, Kevin's my best friend. I want to marry my best friend. I was like, well, no, that makes a lot of sense. Just hanging out. He said, you never know. So it was funny the way it just took a turn into marriage. As you can still be friends. You don't have to marry the person.
Yeah, you'll have lots of good friends and not marry all of them.
You don't have to marry all of them. Yeah.
And in some cases, you don't want to marry them.
Yeah,
You'll learn
Right.
as you get older, buddy. That's
But I actually,
telling. Yeah.
I found that very sweet, to be honest. I found it very, he really has a close friend that he really likes a lot,
that's fine.
I think you handle it like I think the questions at that point, because there are social norms, especially with the older sibling saying something, because that's going to cause that tension.
Yeah.
You got to uncover. Well, what does that mean to you? You really
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if that's
Well-
that filter. If you just say no or if you say yes, that plants that. Oh, then that might be. It can cause confusion. It can cause clarity. You don't know what that's going to cause with the other filters that come in.
Yeah, that's parenting. That's one of those trap questions.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what do I say type of thing, right? Oh, what do you need, sweetheart?
One of my favorites was
Okay, I'll get that for you later.
the kid who comes home from kindergarten and asks, where did I come from? And has
Oh,
a
yeah.
little heart attack and then goes through all like the dad plants seeds, something or other, and the kid's staring at her and she's like, oh, because Cindy comes from Cincinnati.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes we hear things that aren't really what was asked. So it's always a good idea to ask exploring questions before you have a heart attack and react to something you're not quite sure
Yeah,
about.
I'm not that I have a problem with it, but I'm sure it had nothing to do with like boy, girl type thing. It was more of I want to marry my friend.
Yeah.
Don't we marry our friends? Like, I don't want to marry somebody that I don't know, some girl that I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Ew.
The
right?
girls are still
Yeah. Ooh,
creepy.
exactly. Yeah. And his brother spent the whole time going, "Don't worry. In a few years, you're gonna love girls." And I'm like, I'm looking at him. He's 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's nowhere
Wow.
close.
Oh, he's close.
Yeah, he's close.
Apparently closer than you thought, right?
Maybe
Yeah, those-
actually. Yeah.
Those hormone
So
things
maybe all the
start spreading
teasing.
around. They're
Yeah. Right.
starting to smell good.
Maybe the teasing is and he gets all shy and all that. Maybe it's real. Yeah. Maybe he does
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny.
Don't know
It's
what to do
funny.
with those
Definitely one of
feelings
those. Yeah. Definitely one of those trick questions for sure.
Yeah, I
You
love
pull
that.
out the
Like,
guide.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you pull out the guide and okay, page. I don't find this in the parenting guide. Which
There needs to be a hot index where you can just go pop and pops up. What do I say now?
yeah.
But that's a
Oh.
big book because it changes based on what age group they're in, right? At this age group, you handled that perfully. A few years later,
Yeah.
that's a whole different follow-up question, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
Aaron,
it really is.
do you have a specific boy in mind? Like, why that one?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. And this they are quite close. And for a kid who doesn't show a lot of emotion and connect with a lot of other children, for him to really talk about this one other boy and befriend him the way he does. He's the only kid when he goes to school that he says hello to. Every other kid
Wow.
is sort of just in the periphery type
Yeah.
thing. He'll wave or he'll nod or something, right? But then it's like, Kevin, right? And big hugs for Kevin type of thing in the morning, right? So actually we're having to find a way to pull back a little bit with him. We have to teach him a little bit. The social norm at school is we don't have to hug everybody all the time. Maybe once in a while we can, but I think and he's a smaller kid, so my boy's like this and this boy's like this, so the hug becomes this gigantic,
little suffocating a bit.
yeah, a little suffocating. So his parents are like, could James not do that all the time? I'm like, I'll try.
Yeah.
I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
I have a question for you, Mark, on that. Like, especially with, it's right about that age, I imagine, with the whole like asking permission. It's really great that the other family said, hey, can we back that up? Like, that communication is awesome, but is that a conversation you're having with your kids of, hey, we don't touch somebody else without their permission, and not always even if we do? I think we talked a little bit about this somewhere.
Yeah, we
The
definitely
consent conversation.
yeah, we definitely talked about it a little bit, and I'd say more so organically in this house because I am a hugger. I hug my kids like 17 times a day. I'm like, and that's where he gets it from, I'm sure.
Do it as long as you can. I can't even get a high five for mine.
Right, hug, and then one day they're gonna punch me, and I'm gonna be like, okay, no more hugs. But yeah, for now, hug. So he thinks hugs are rather normal, that you do it every day, right? But my wife has a bubble. She's one of those people that has a zone of like, she can't even stand in line without feeling a little bit uncomfortable about people being too close type of thing, right? So she always calls it her personal space. So we do end up talking about it, and she's his advocate for that, because I'm more like, what's wrong with hugging, right? So she's more like the other side saying, well, not everybody wants to be touched all the time, and blah 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 blah. So yeah, we do end up addressing that at the dinner table. Yeah. The famous dinner table.
How you can tell the answer is yes, rather than assuming it's yes when it hasn't actually been said.
Yeah, assumptions are
that goes down a dark path there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. I love the British police came up with, I think it was the London police, had a cute video about tea. If you wanted tea before and you don't want tea now, I can't make you take the tea. And if you're sleeping, you can't have tea. And it's a really good video.
A metaphor for life.
Yeah, for consent. If you wanted tea the last time I saw you, it doesn't necessarily mean you want tea again. And it's, I really liked it.
Oh, I like that. That is pretty good.
I do too. I do too. Yeah.
I shared that a lot. It's a good tool. And I think it's the kind of thing that kids can really understand. Like even quite little kids can sort of get it, that just because your friend liked to hug yesterday doesn't mean he wants a hug right now. And the fact that you want to hug right now doesn't really have anything to do with anybody else, actually.
Can I ask a really big question here? This is probably too big for this topic, but you never know. Are the kids teaching us? And what I mean by that is this our opportunity to look in the mirror with kids, right? And yeah, we're supposed to teach them how to tie their shoes and teach them how to, eat and, stuff like that. But really we have to if we don't think about everything we're trying to teach them, then we're really just kind of like repeat, and then we're not really learning anything, right? So are there books called
Growing the
parenting,
parent up.
growing the parent or something like that? Yeah.
Ooh, I
Is
like
there a
it.
book like that?
There is actually, there's a really lovely one called The Conscious Parent by, I think her name is Stefali Sarbury. She's British, I think. And she talks a lot about how when you have those intense reactions to things that your kids are doing, it's usually because of something from your own past where you were the kid being yelled at. And now you're in the power position, and it's very difficult to resist yelling in those situations and to just become much more aware of your own predilections rather than looking at kids and thinking, well, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Because there usually isn't anything wrong with kids. Kids are fine. Parents are nuts.
Right.
Kids are fine.
In fact, we misuse that term. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
that's, when you think about it, that's a horrible thing to say to somebody.
Well, think about that. If they do something out of line and you ask that question, they're probably thinking, well, heck, I thought this was okay. I learned it from you. So
Yeah.
now where do I go? Now what
Yeah.
source of truth do I follow? That can be
Yeah.
really devastating.
Well, and that meme that goes around every now and then that I really like the first time I heard it, I was like, yes, that actually, when kids are made to feel bad about something that they did, that whole shamed and you're wrong and what's wrong with you and all that kind of stuff. They don't feel
Yeah.
that they did something bad. They feel like they are bad.
Yeah.
Like they don't take
It's
it
not
in
the
as
action.
feedback about the stuff. They take it in as feedback about themselves.
Yeah. You got to be careful. Got to
Yeah.
be careful.
For sure. And I love that question too about, are we learning? I think it's a choice. I think most people don't ask that question or any version of that because I'm doing a lot of growth right now through my kids because I never thought about it. I mean, it's not something you're told to think about. And I think, and I'm going to take this in a slightly different place, but one thing I'm learning is I am extremely racist.
Oh,
And I didn't, I would say like maybe 3 years ago, I would say there's no way I don't have a racist bone in my body. And now I'm looking at stuff and I'm a brown man, right? And I'm just like, the stuff that came through my parents, and they would say they're not racist, but my dad grew up in what he would call the ghettos in Detroit. He grew up poor, and he'll say things that to him were the norm, and that got filtered down to me, and I'm like, wow. And I learned this because I say things, my kids are like, whoa, Dad, you can't do that. And then I catch myself doing the same thing to them. They're saying stuff, I'm like, time out, you can't say that. And so there's this really interesting circle of, there's some deep embedded stuff that I didn't even know I was doing, passing on to you, but I did. So let's clear it. Right? I think there's a huge opportunity to learn from our kids, but it's been a heck of a journey for me. And I'm like, sometimes it's scary, but it's very worthwhile.
That particular topic is scary, right? Because you're really diving into your past and your upbringing and how you really feel about things, right? Because there's just because you're being passively racist doesn't mean that you aren't a racist, right? It's still racism, right? It's just not necessarily on purpose, but to take a minute to think about it, that's exactly what I mean, Hank. The kids make you look at yourself if like you said, you make the choice to
you have to be open to it. You have to be open to
a lot
that
of
level of
blinders
personal growth. Yeah.
So I mean, if we're trying to change the world, how do we get people to open up that book? How do we get people to realize that there is a choice?
I think by talking about the power of it. I think quite a lot of people are really resistant. You can see people trying really hard to avoid responsibility, and they think, well, who would want responsibility? It's ugly from this side. Like, it looks like too much work. It's such a drag. It's for squares or whatever they say. No, I don't know what kids call the people who are blockheads anymore, but it looks like it's too hard, and it looks like it has nothing good in it.
Oh.
But in fact, David Schnarch said it really clearly in Passionate Marriage. The fact is, if you want bliss, you can get that with a full cable package and 6-pack. It's not difficult, it's not challenging, and it's not very rewarding. Whereas overcoming our challenges and mastering ourselves in our world is where deep joy really lives. And we don't get that by being passive and hanging out and hoping for the best and not engaging and not being challenged and not overcoming ourselves. It is overcoming ourselves that creates that true deep joy. And I don't think people know that. I think it's really uncommon for people to find out that there are actually serious personal benefits to being on the other side of responsibility.
Should we teach this in high school?
Absolutely.
I think so.
You know what I mean?
In fact, I think you could teach it quite a lot younger than that.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I
agree.
think we need to, like, what do you call that class? Included in part of sociology or personal growth, personal health class?
Self-awareness.
Yeah,
Personal
yeah.
development.
Personal
Yeah.
development. Yeah.
Like you go
Yeah.
to gym class, why wouldn't you go to self-awareness class or
Yeah.
something, right? Like,
Yeah.
we it's funny how we skip all this.
I don't
Well,
think it's funny.
It's not considered, no, it's not funny. It's not, I don't think it's considered the kind of thing you can mark, compete for, and put it into a box with any given adult teaching it. I think there's some real skill involved in it, and that's like a level of expertise that's really difficult to say, well, teacher number 105 needs to have the same ability as teacher number 82. And in that system, they're considered interchangeable adults.
Yeah.
So I think it's part of it is because it's such challenging material that you need to have a very different type of teacher involved.
So risky to even think about teaching it. So therefore, we're going to avoid it, type of thing. Yeah, yeah. So they're acting like parents.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also think there's a certain amount of desire to avoid that in general because the whole school system was built on it was built on a
English,
purpose
math. Yeah.
that doesn't serve our society anymore. With Google, that changed everything, and nobody really talks about how we're in a wholly different world right now, and what we
Well,
should be spending time with is vastly different than what we are.
School was genuinely, it started out, prep school was the first real kids school, and it was for teenagers, but it was for university prep.
Yeah.
And it turned out that wasn't enough preparation for university, so they went backwards and backwards and backwards, and now we have pre-kindergarten. But the primary reason it became mass public education was to put kids somewhere when adults were working, because kids were banned from the workforce. And it really isn't any more complicated than that. It's babysitting, and then we might as well make them into good little workers while we're at it.
Yeah.
Well
That's a big component is, well, let's have the bell ring and have them break it next bell, and
Yep.
let's make sure they can do 8 hours of whatever so that we can hire them to do whatever, right? Like that's
So
that's a stick
there's
in my
hope.
craw, but I love it.
Yeah, right. So there's hope for my little guy who rebels against all this, and
Huh?
he's not going to be the good little worker. He's going to own his own business or something.
Conglomerate, yeah.
Well, here, I'll tell you.
That'd be amazing.
I'll tell you how I'm feeling right now, because I've shared with you guys, like my son finally got his grade up to a 20-some% in one of his classes. And I just sent him, yeah, up to 20. And I was like,
Yeah,
look, you just do a simple math problem. Let's do 20 plus 100. What's the average? That's 60, which means you've got to nail second quarter for you to pass this class, right? And so just being that tip, what my dad would have done would yell, scream, and you got to get your crap in gear, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, let's just decide if this is what you want to do. Is it time to drop this and take it again? Do it like an online version? Like, let's just look at what really is. If you don't want to proceed with school, that's fine. If you want to get a GED, if you want to go get a job, like, if I come at it with any negative emotion, that destroys any chance I have of getting him to take some responsibility. He's just going to rebel against the emotion rather than the content.
yeah,
So-
he'll just react to your reaction, and then
Yeah.
everybody's reacting, and that's not a way to get anywhere
Right.
that
So
anybody wants to go.
yeah, exactly. My hope is that he takes some form of responsibility, fail or pass, or like, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah,
it
drop
sucks
it.
to say that, but it just doesn't matter because he's going to have to deal with it. And he's 17. He's damn near an adult, if not already. Like, okay, let's
Oh,
go.
yeah, no, he's 10 years off being an adult, yeah. He's gonna get qualified to do things like drink and vote and stuff, but
Right.
it's easily 10 more years of brain development before they're really capable of risk assessment and self-aware enough to be able to pick a topic that they actually want to spend time on. Like,
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
as a guy. I think
Yeah.
guys, that you can take a couple years off if you're a female, but definitely when I was 30, it was when I realized, oh my God, I think I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, Tank, that's I honestly, we talked about your son last time, and how do you decide how hard to push, like where do you, like you seem to have a great outlook in terms of like maybe you're fighting it on the inside, but you're like really the exterior is I'm supportive, do what you want, here are your choices type of thing, right? But how do you stop
Yeah.
yourself from saying, dude, like just stop and do it? You know what I mean? Like, right?
It's
I would say the reason you don't do that is because it's so perfectly obviously never going to work.
yeah.
And
I mean,
if you have enough
that's true.
experience, you know that it is never going to work, and there's no words that make it any better. We're
Is it never
actually
gonna
about to
work?
run out of time. It's not, you
Okay.
tell your kid to stop, it's never going to work. That's not how it works.
Yeah,
Like, they don't
it's the
respond
same
to
thing
that.
that you did with your son. Is what's going on? Why do you say that? Why do you want to marry your best friend? Oh, because he is your, like, okay, so why do you not care about school? Well, like, it's that question. It's just
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah, okay,
on,
that's fair.
and the more I can uncover, the better chance I have of helping him.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a good
And we're out of
metaphor.
time.
Feels good, but
Great
Well,
chat,
nice
guys
seeing you
guys.
this morning, guys.
Thank
thank
you.
you guys.
Take
Have a
care.
great day. See you
You
soon.
too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.